Do you know you can experience all the thrills of F1 racing, even if you're not a pro driver? Well, that was the case for Nicholas Hamilton, Lewis Hamilton's 30-year-old brother, who made history by becoming the first disabled person to drive an F1 simulator. As you can imagine, this must have been a joyful and emotional moment for him. Keep watching this video to get the full details of this historic event. What you need to know: Nicholas Hamilton, who is a brother to superstar race driver Lewis Hamilton, competes in the British Touring Car Championships using a modified vehicle despite having cerebral palsy. Now that he's had a taste of what his brother feels like in a Mercedes F1 vehicle, he's created history. Lewis Hamilton said of his brother's memorable experience, and I quote, "Earlier this year, Nicholas and I inquired as to whether we might make this day a reality, and here we are. Time in the sim is extremely seldom and not something that my brother could possibly access." How did Hamilton's handicapped brother manage the simulator? To make the experience possible for Nicholas Hamilton, the seat, steering wheel, and pedals needed to be altered specifically. He was the first disabled person ever to spend the entire day in it. Lewis Hamilton continued to express his joy by saying, "Seeing him enjoy this day is an honor. He's always been a fighter. He always had this smile on his face. Thank you, Mercedes, for taking the time and effort to make this possible and realize my brother's dream. I can't wait to share more of this special day with you." All of the secrets of the F1 simulator explained. From the outside, it could appear that a Formula One team simulator is essentially a huge video game console, adding to the lengthy list of factors that leads so many kids to believe that becoming a racing driver is the ideal profession. Sadly, the F1 simulator is far more complicated than an ordinary video game. Driving a simulator needs a great deal of expertise and effort, but it can also be a lot of fun, so there is some truth to the video game comparison. It is, however, much more complex and expensive than standard gaming gear. A new multi-million-dollar piece of equipment called a Formula One simulator enables car improvements without the need for on-track testing, which helps to save a substantial amount of resources, energy, and money. Although it would be an exaggeration to claim that they're wrapped in mystery, they're undoubtedly not easily accessible to the general public. A no-entrance sign is posted on the door of the private room, where the McLaren simulator resides at the McLaren Technology Center. Only authorized personnel are allowed to access the room. Few people ever make it past the sign, and even fewer are given the opportunity to use the simulator. Therefore, in order to understand more, we spent a day with test and development driver Will Stevens and the McLaren simulator team. How does it work? When the simulator's turned on, the room is faintly lighted, with the massive 180-degree widescreen of the simulator providing the majority of the light. The crew consists of Serena Potts, her fellow simulator performance engineers, and the operating staff. There are a few food and drinks on the table, but everyone's hunkered down, and the simulator is the sole source of background noise. Will and Serena join us for coffee in the MTC's Juice Bar as we take a break from driving to talk about their day's work and how it fits into McLaren's overall strategy. The simulator may significantly impact the development of the car if used properly, says Will. The majority of our work involves developing cars, whether they're for the model year or the next. That is the testing of the finished products, both during and after development. Examples include aerodynamic, suspension, and steering. The group develops what they think is the best course of action. Then we test it and provide input on whether we believe it's a positive or negative change. In some respects, we're making sure that even though they may have chosen a decent course of action, they didn't overlook a better alternative course of action, Serena continues. The virtual world is put to use once a week, with Lando, Daniel, and test and development drivers Will Stevens and Oliver Turvey splitting the effort. Will can continuously drive the same course for several hours, just as he would in a real exam. Because of its diversity and assortment of nooks and neighborhoods, Barcelona is a special favorite. Will explains some of the work that has been done this season, saying, "It's well known that this year's focus has been on suspension stiffness and ride height selection, regulating the interplay between aerodynamic performance efficiency, ride, and curb impacts." Almost everyone in the pit lane will agree with it. A lot of this year's work has been focused on determining the appropriate trade-offs for each circuit, among other things, playing about with that trade-off and the outcome. We then provide the engineers with that knowledge to decide how to operate the automobiles optimally and strike the right balance. Simulator versus real-life racing. When comparing a simulator to a real-life experience, it can be difficult to realize how accurate it is. Simulators don't actually drive on a track where external conditions like weather and surface might vary greatly from session to session. They consist of a cockpit and a front wing. With only 6 days of testing in the 2022 cars allowed before the season, 3 in Spain and another 3 in Bahrain, the potential to make up for that has made simulators such a viable alternative to on-track testing. Serena explains, "We'll bring back to the simulator a lot of the physical components of what happens at the track. That may be ambient air conditions that have an impact on the tires, or it could be a wind profile so that we can precisely simulate how track conditions affect car balance. Take the wind, for instance. Since the simulator essentially functions as a wind model, we can use the track to obtain real-world data that we can then apply to it. Wind direction, speed, force, and even gusts can all be mapped. On the sim, all of this may be done." Will answers, "From a balance standpoint, I can definitely feel that while I'm driving the sim. You can't feel the wind, of course, but from the perspective of balance, I can feel how the car should shift when there's a strong headwind or tailwind." Sims has advanced greatly. Since the F1 cars have so many data channels that we can correlate to, we input every single bit of data we can from them. All of that information is incorporated into the simulation model, which puts our balance in an extremely near window to what they actually experience. The team is now working on improvements for the car like those mentioned above, but they're also giving the team at the track comprehensive race weekend support. The team can use the information they get during free practice to correlate every aspect of the car that weekend, including wind, tire pressure, the balance of the vehicle, and ride heights. The team practice time can then be increased by several hours by coordinating this with the input that Lando and Daniel provided during the sessions and exploring it further. Will says, "We go through a ton of different setup tasks that we are able to perform more quickly than they could do on track. Race weekend assistance is a significant portion of what we do. We work in between sessions, but primarily after FP2 and overnight before FP3. We always work to the time zone that is in effect at the track, and these days are normally a little longer. They give us comments on everything they can think of that they would like to change, and then we test it out and let them know what we think is good and terrible about it. The local crew analyzes such data to make a decision about the setup of the cars for FP3. What then distinguishes a skilled simulator driver? Firstly, patience. That statement is met with a chuckle, but it's true, given the hours they spend traveling the same circuit in search of even the smallest facts that could matter. There are long stretches of silence as Will competes lap after lap in the simulator sessions, before and after a coffee break, broken up by brief and pointed debriefs on what is felt and noticed. Packing as much as you can into each day and being aware of what to look for and potential queries might help you avoid wasting a lot of time. Will has been a McLaren test and development driver for 4 years, so this is second nature to him. Will is excellent. He provides us with high-caliber feedback. It also helps that he's worked with McLaren for a long time because he's familiar with our needs, according to Serena. Will has the capacity to distinguish between what is wholly improbable at the track and what is feasible. From behind the computers or while studying the data, we might not be able to achieve that. If Will says something won't work, we can look further and come up with a solution. Will continues, "You have to be reliable and effective. If it takes you 15 laps to notice a difference, you won't accomplish nearly as much during the day. From this vantage point, it is advantageous to have a solid understanding of the technical and development sides in order to properly communicate your feelings and provide feedback that they can use. Another thing is that you need to drive it fairly similarly to what the race drivers are doing, because as a driver, you can greatly influence how the car's behaving. So you need a sim driver who's able to influence that behavior in the same way," the expert continued. Will's deep knowledge of actual Formula One machinery comes into play on that latter point. Between 2014 and 2015, the racer from XS entered F1 20 times with Caterham and Manor Marussia. Most recently in July, as part of a driver development program, Will got behind the wheel of the MCL35M in Portimao, Portimao. Will says, "It is so crucial to have that experience. Making selections based on what would work on the track is helpful to me. Having recently driven a McLaren Formula 1 car, it means that I can benefit from the simulator even more." So guys, tell us what you think of the F1 simulator. The comment section is all yours. And if you found this video informative, it'll be great if you like and share it so your pals can be informed too. Also, hit the like and subscribe button so you can keep getting more interesting content like this. Thanks for watching.